Hey folks, we're back with the second part of our beginner songwriting course that we have here for the guitar. Now, what we did in the first lesson was we learned the C major scale in chords, and what we did was we played the four primary chords, the main chords in our key, which are C, F, G and A minor. Okay, they're the strong ones, and they were really easy to make sound good, so hopefully you've had a little practice with those. Maybe even wrote a couple of parts of a song or a full song with those chords. What we're going to talk about today is the other three chords which we haven't looked at putting in progressions, which are the D minor, the E minor and the G over B chord, which is our last chord. Now these chords aren't as easy to sound good. We kind of treat them as secondary chords in the key. What we're going to do though is we're going to hopefully get these flowing through with some progressions, and you can see how they can be used. Now a lot of the time though you can use your ear to help decide if this chord, like the D minor, E minor or one of the other chords, sounds good together, okay? The best thing to do is use your ear, but I'll give you a couple of little tips on where you can use these so that you can vary your chord progressions and add a little bit more spice to the chords. Okay, so our first chord is going to be the D minor, okay? We'll put all our chords up on screen now though so you can see. So we'll have our full C major chord scale up on screen again. But we're going to have a look at this D minor. Okay, so the D minor looks like this. You can see from the chord diagram above. You're just playing this chord here. Okay? Now, we need to decide on places where we can put this. Okay? Now the best option I'm going to give you today is to use it in a sort of easy progression. Okay? We're going to go from a D minor, which is the second chord in the scale. Then we're going to go to a G, okay, which is our fifth chord in the scale. And then we're going to go to a C, which is the first chord in the scale. Okay? So this is actually a classic chord progression. It's used a lot in jazz, but you'll find it a lot in pop music as well. What we're going to do is we're going to be playing the second chord, the fifth chord, and the first chord. Okay, so if we played this through, we'll just pick a simple sort of 8 downstroke strumming pattern. So we'd have D minor, G, like so. Okay, so you can see I had one bar of D minor, one bar of G, 2 bars of C, and it sounds quite melodic. Now let's put that together with a chord progression that we had before. So let's do C, A minor, F and G, and then follow it up with a D minor, G and C. Okay, so we'll go through this. I'll run through the chords as I'll tell you the chords that we're going through. So we're going to play C. We'll play 16 on that, then we'll play A minor. 16 on this one as well. We're playing F for 16, G for 16. Now we're going to change to D minor for A, then G for A, and then C for 16. Okay, so you can see those chords flowed really well together. D minor to G is a very, very strong change. Okay, that's a 2-5 change, we'd call that. Second chord to fifth chord. It's a really good one. And you can see if we had those two parts in a song, the first part being the C, A, F and G, that'd be a nice strong part in a song, maybe a chorus or something like that, or a verse. And then we had this. D minor, G and C, which you could maybe treat as a post-chorus, pre-chorus, a bridge section, something a little bit different, okay? Because you notice we started on a major chord here, on the first section, C, A, F and G, and then when we changed to the next section, there was a distinct change in chord after those bars that we played, a D minor. So it had a sort of, not a sadder sound, but it did change the sound of the chord progressions as they were meeting each other, okay, coming in from one and going to the next. So that's a good little change. D minor to G, very useful one to remember. So you can pretty much put most things before that, and then as long as we finish with a D minor and a G, it's probably going to want to resolve back to a C. Okay, so that'll conclude the D minor one. Remember, you can put these anywhere you like. Okay, a D minor to an F, then to a G or something like that would also be good, but use your ear and see what you can come up with for that. Now our next chord would be an E minor, okay? Now I find one of the best places for an E minor in our songs is either next to a C or an A minor chord, okay? So say we had this, say we had C, E minor, F and G. It's quite a nice chord progression. Let's play 8 strums on that, just down strums again. There's E minor there. F. Like so. Okay, sounds pretty good. Or we could go okay, so see what I did there? I started on A minor and went to an E minor after that, and then changed to F and then G. You don't have to do F and G afterwards or anything like that. This is just the chords that I think would sound good afterwards. Okay, so E minor has got a fairly, not a super strong relationship, but a nice relationship with the C and the A minor as well. Okay, so you would try and put those into a progression. So what we'll maybe do is we'll play this progression here, C, E minor, F and G, and then what we'll do is we'll change to the progression we did before for the D minor, which would be D minor, G and C for 2 bars. Okay, so let's hear how that sounds. This is taking the second, third chord now and trying to put them in a song context. So say we had this would be like our chorus. So it's C, E minor, F, G, then down to D minor. Little bridge section, G, and then to C next. And you can maybe repeat that. D minor, G, and then we can maybe walk something down like. Okay, so that was me taking it just a little bit further after that. That was me trying to add in the last chord in the scale, which is our, we would call a slash chord really. It's one chord with a bass note above it, okay, a different bass note above it. So, hopefully that makes sense for the E minor. You can have a little practice with that. Remember, you can try these in any order. Some of them sound good, some of them don't, but practice through and maybe use a couple of these ideas that I've used here today as well. So our last one that we're going to use is the G over B chord. Okay, now the G over B chord looks like this. Okay, you'll see it sometimes played like that. You also maybe see a variation where it's like that. Just kind of, it's kind of like a C chord with a B in the bass there. This being our B note here with the middle finger. We're going to try it like this. So a really good one for this is to walk back the way, make it like a sort of walking bass line pattern going back. Okay, so our C note, our C chord here, starts on this note, our C note on the A string here, our 5th string. Now, if we walked back to the G over B, that's going to give us this move. And the bass, okay, it's kind of like walking down the scale a little bit. What you could go to after that is an open A, which would suggest an A minor chord. And then you could either go to a G, or say maybe an F afterwards as well. That'd be a good one to go to. So let's walk down this this little pattern here. C, G over B, A minor, and F. Okay, so here we go. Here's 8 strums on each as well, just keeping it simple. So C, G over B, A minor, and F. Like so. Okay, so this last chord is usually a diminished chord within like say a normal jazz context or a blues context, but because we're playing in rock and pop, we keep that 7th chord in our scale, G over B, we keep it as melodic as possible, so we turn it into a slash chord, which just makes it that little bit nicer on the ears. Now it functions as basically a G chord, because it is a G chord really, but we've got the B here in the bass, and that just gives it that you hear the difference there? You're hearing that do, 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 that little walk down the bass there. It's a really useful one to use. So, that would be my advice for using it there, is to keep it next to a C, and that gives you just a little bit of a nice like move down the bass there. Okay, so that's all of the 7 chords now, and hopefully you'll have a little idea about how you can use them all together. In our next lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about strumming patterns, and I'm going to give you 4 different strumming patterns to practice along with these chords, just to give you a little bit more to think about, and a little bit more variation within your strumming as well. Okay, so hopefully you found this chord lesson quite useful, and you're well on your way to writing some hit songs, and I'll speak to you in the next video.